of the law being enforced, and also in support of judges who've been subjected to death threats and now require police protection since the Le Pen decision. And the warm and dry weather is expected to continue across the country for the whole of the coming week, after we enjoyed the hottest day of the year so far on Friday. And if you've been out and relaxing, well, you may not have done any better than this. A flotilla of vintage barges here, some of which are 100 years old or more. This is all in the Republic of Ireland, in County Laois. They're on their way to Waterford via Athy in County Kildare. Now, this flotilla, organised by the Heritage Boats Association, it takes place every 4 years. I challenge you to find a more relaxing activity. That's it for the moment. I'll be back with more at 7 o'clock.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Chief Secretary to the Treasury, Darren Jones, joins me now. Thank you very much for joining us this morning, Minister. Obviously, Donald Trump's tariffs have rather kiboshed the spring statement. We've now got David Miles of the OBR suggesting it's going to knock off between 0.6 and 1% from GDP. So the Chancellor can't possibly still be stating that we're going to be £500 better off, can she?
The spring statement was a broad set of economic forecasts about the future, and of course if the world changes, those forecasts will change when they're published again at the budget. But the important thing here is that our plan for change, which is the steps that we're taking as a government to create a stronger and more resilient economy, are now more important than ever. As the Prime Minister said this morning, the world has changed. We knew that already on security and defence. It's now true on global trade, and that's why we have to go further and faster into investing in the economy and supporting businesses.
OK, so if the world has changed, then surely it's an idea particularly to scrap the increase to employers' national insurance. We've got businesses on their knees. We've got Richard Walker, who was literally a poster boy for the Labour's election campaign. He's the CEO of Iceland, saying that basically you're robbing businesses blind. We're not a piggy bank for Labour, he says. We've got the growth forecast down. We've now been hit by tariffs. We've got the car industry on its knees. And yet still you're taxing businesses. So
the Prime Minister is going to say more this coming week about what further support we have for businesses. But look, as we've talked about on your show before, I understand that the employer national insurance contribution changes, which are for bigger businesses. You'll remember we've rehearsed this before, but 50% of businesses in the UK will either pay the same or less than they did before. But for the other 49%, I recognise they would rather not pay those additional contributions. But what is it that is doing? It helped us get a grip of the public finances, which are in a mess that we inherited from the Conservatives, and it's now starting to pay dividends. We've seen National Health Service waiting lists fall month after month for the last 5 years. We've been able to rail out support for parents who need to be able to get to work, and ultimately this is all about trying to get people to be better supported, trained and able to get to work, to be able to support businesses alongside our broader range of support for the UK economy.
Hang on there. Reed, which is a recruitment firm that represents 254 companies, which in turn represent 260,000 employees. They've told the Mail on Sunday this morning that nearly half of all their companies are cutting recruitment. So it's now proving more difficult for people to find work. You're trying to get people off benefits and into work. Businesses are saying they're either letting people go or freezing recruitment. In what way does this promote growth and support business? What you're saying is completely contradictory to the actual facts on the ground.
I wouldn't say that that's the case. I mean, if you talk to any business leaders, they will tell you that our approach to dealing with what's going on in the... Well, I'm about to tell you, Camilla. If you talk to businesses, they will say that our approach to dealing with these changes in the global economy is the right one. We need to be able to secure these trading agreements with the United States, improve our relationship with the EU and other partners around the world. We've already brought forward investments into skills and training, for example, in the construction sector, which has been well welcomed by business, and we've already announced our swathe of investment through industrial policy, infrastructure strategy, to be able to get the UK building again. I understand, and as I say, we talk about it every time, I understand the employer national insurance contributions is difficult for bigger businesses, but when you step back and look at the broader picture, are businesses happy about the approach the UK government is taking? Yes. Is the UK seen as a good place to invest, especially in a changing world? Yes, they are. Are we working hand in glove with businesses to support them as best we can? Yes, we are, and we've seen that only this week with businesses in Downing Street, with the Prime Minister, with the Chancellor, with the Business Secretary. We're working together to be able to weather the storm that's going on in the world.
OK, I mean, you're working with some businesses, perhaps. You're not working with care homes, are you? Care England, the body representing care homes, is now suing the government over the rise in national insurance. You haven't exempted care homes despite this huge bed blocking situation we've got on in hospitals. Nurseries are now in crisis. They haven't been exempted from the NI rise either. So why is Labour penalising the most vulnerable members of society? Elderly people kept in care homes, children in nurseries. I mean, how do you expect these already hard-pressed organisations to stump up thousands of pounds more in their bills?
So in reverse order, Camilla, we've already put an additional £2 billion to subsidise childcare providers and nurseries. That's now £8 billion a year that we're spending to do so. And as you know, the Health Secretary announced hundreds of millions of pounds of additional support for the hospices and additional announcements for the care system. And we'll have more to say about that later this year. But look, this investment was important. As I say, £26 billion into the National Health Service. I think people welcome that. They're seeing that through the improvements in the treatment and the experience they're having with waiting lists falling each and every month for the last 5 months. And we've been able to do that whilst protecting our promise not to increase taxes on working people in their pay slips or VAT on the things that they pay for in the shops, and brought stability back to the economy, which is why the OBR forecast at the spring statement that the economy, because of our decisions here in Westminster, will result in more growth, more jobs and a larger economy over the years ahead.
Hang on a minute, no, the OBR didn't say that, did it? The OBR slashed the growth forecast from 2 to 1%. You can say you inherited a bad economic legacy. But equally, there are many people that think people think that you've made it worse. You've made a bad inheritance worse.
26. No, the numbers aren't true. You need to look at the forecast period, the 5-year period.
With the tariffs.
You're talking about year 2025.
Are you saying that the OBR's forecast from last week,
as it was for every country across the G7, and then if you look at 26, 27, 27, 28, 29, 30, the OBR forecast growth up, and they were very clear that that was as a direct consequence of the decisions that we are taking as a government. And we're going to continue to go further and faster on that, but in partnership with businesses to get the economy in the strongest possible position.
Are you seriously suggesting that the OBR's growth forecasts that were in the spring statement still apply in a post-tariff world where the OBR itself has said that it's going to shave up to 1% off our GDP? Those growth forecasts aren't worth anything anymore, are they?
So one of the growth upgrades to the forecast was because of our approach on planning and house building in the UK domestic economy. We can carry on doing that. We're going to build our 1.5 million homes. We're going to create all of these extra jobs in the construction sector. You're right that the global trading environment, which is relevant, of course, to exporters, but also the cost of borrowing, is something that we're going to need to try to weather, and we're working really hard to protect the UK economy as best we can from that. But that doesn't stop us going further and faster on the UK economy in our own country, where we are investing in people and businesses and every part of the country to make sure that growth is as strong as it can be and that living standards improve. And it was the OBR forecast, and you can go back and check, that made it very clear that it's a direct direct consequence of the decisions that we're taking about the UK economy. We can expect the UK economy to be stronger, larger, and that people's disposable incomes will get better under this Labour government.
Well, I'm just reacting to the fact that the FTSE was down 4.95% last week. That's the biggest fall since COVID, and you seem to think that the spring statement still applies. Is the Prime Minister coming out with a new industrial strategy this week then?
So the Prime Minister will give a speech later this week about some of the initial measures we're taking to support British businesses and to make sure that the UK economy is as strong and resilient as it can be. We've been working on industrial strategy for a number of months now, and there'll be more details coming later in the year.
Okay.
But we've been very clear, and the Prime Minister will be clear this week, that we'll be working hand in glove with businesses to make the UK economy as strong and resilient as possible, and to support those businesses in the face of difficult global trade winds as a consequence of tariffs from the United States and retaliatory tariffs from other countries around the world.
The car industry in the UK is on its knees, isn't it?
The UK car industry is an important part of the UK economy. We've announced recent investments to support, for example, the transition to modern technologies. Of course, the tariffs from the United States for companies who predominantly or largely export cars to the United States is difficult for those businesses, which is why we're working with them to understand what more we can do to create better conditions for them here at the UK and with other trading partners.
It's not just difficult, is it? I mean, Jaguar Land Rover is now saying it can't actually sell cars to the US anymore and make any money. So surely the governmental response to that needs to be to scrap these EV targets, because one of the reasons the car industry is on its knees, even before the tariffs, was this need to pay £15,000 for every non-EV vehicle that they build. I mean, you can't stick with these targets, surely now.
So Jaguar Land Rover have paused their exports to the United States, as you have said. They already have a pool of their vehicles in the US, and they're just trying to work through the implications of the recent announcements. And the government is working in partnership with Jaguar Land Rover and other car companies to help them in that process. On broader regulatory changes, as I say, the Prime Minister will have more to say on this later this week, and you'll be able to see the detail when he delivers that speech.
So are you not ruling out changes to those EV targets?
I'm just saying that the Prime Minister will give a speech later this week, and you'll be able to hear what he has to say.
That doesn't, so you're not ruling them out. And then finally, on this trade deal with the US, is it going to require us to water down our digital services tax in order to sign this deal with Trump?
So there are two things here. One, it's obviously important that companies pay their fair share of tax in the UK. We will always make sure that's the case. But second to that, as you all know, I'm not going to give a running commentary on the state of the negotiations or the timing of them, because we have to give our negotiators the space to be able to progress those talks privately at this stage with the United States of America. But a huge amount of work has gone into it already. It's already significantly progressed. I think we're probably ahead of the pack compared to other countries around the world, and we're going to continue to work hard to get a deal that's in the interest of the UK economy and British jobs and British businesses.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
I do think that there is extremities in how this has been approached with, you can't eat kebabs anymore. The Climate Change Committee isn't talking about banning meat. It's talking about reducing meat, perhaps having some incentives for plant-based diets. It's talking about doing small changes, not phasing out everything, doing small changes to move to a net zero future, a more sustainable future.
How can me not having a lodged on a combat, I don't know, China opening one coal-fired power station a week? Come on, this is pointless.
Well, there is other things that have been advised beyond just, reducing our meat consumption. There's things around the tax around flying and aviation, producing less fossil fuel imports and switching to more renewable power, upgrading the grid. There's a lot of other advisories collectively that moves us towards a net zero future. There is a few, of course, we can go down the route of, they can't eat the kebab anymore, but there's far more other things at play than just the kebab meat.
Meanwhile, Donald Trump, that man again, is just laughing at all this. Drill, baby, drill. You're not telling me that his cabinet are going to chow down on some quinoa. This is a red meat country leading the way, and if we had half a brain about us, we'd be drilling ourselves.
I come from an energy industry background. I work for a data intelligence company, Mapstand, as well. And what we're seeing is that what's happening in America is actually quite short-term thinking. It's not long-term thinking. Whereas in places in China, you're seeing a lot of innovation and green innovation because there is a huge economic opportunity.
Yeah, because they're selling it all to the West and polluting their atmosphere. We're offshoring our carbon footprint and they're selling the solar panels back to us because we're the mugs.
We're also able to be the producers and also change our own energy so that we can also compete.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Deputy Leader of Reform UK, Richard Tice, joins me now in the studio. Has Rupert Lowe got dementia?
I've no idea. I mean,
why a reform?
You'll have to ask him.
Well, he says not. He's 67. He says he's perfectly cognitively functioning. Why on earth are reform sources putting it about to the media that Rupert Lowe has got dementia? Well, he says you are.
Camilla, this is a story of a month ago.
No, it's still a story. No, it's still in the papers because he's suggested through his own KC that your investigation wasn't really worth the paper it was written on.
Oh, surprise, surprise. He didn't like ours because it found credible evidence that he and his staff...
Are we disagreeing with Gemma Whale KC of Irwin Mitchell? I mean, she says...
I've no idea who she is. We had an independent report...
She's saying that your report wasn't carried out properly.
Fine, KC's disagreed.
Right.
We've had an independent report. It showed there was credible evidence. The story's weeks old. Everyone's moved on.
Is it weeks old?
It is weeks old.
I'm not sure it is. I think it's still rumbling on.
You may be obsessed with this.
You don't know whether Rupert Lowe has got dementia or not, but you're not denying that people in Reform have been putting about that he might have.
I am denying that. It's nonsense. The reality is that we've moved on. And we're focused on the elections that are going on all over the country, where we're allowed to have them, and it's going to be very interesting. May the 1st is a big day.
It's going to be interesting because so far...
I think it's going to be very interesting indeed.
So far, the Tories have won 23 council seats in by-elections. You've just won 12. I mean, you're not doing that well, are you?
Camilla, we are the largest party in terms of the number of seats that we are going to fight in these council elections. Well, we're growing. We're now leading in the polls, or equal first, and let's see what the elections... say. There's all sorts of... it's a really big day, May the 1st. Everybody's going to be campaigning hard. We think we've got a cracking chance, and that's why we're out and about campaigning. And,
is there a risk? Is there a risk?
There's always risk in life.
Nigel Farage may have been tainted by his sort of undiluted love for Donald Trump, because unfortunately the British public doesn't love Trump as much as Farage does. In fact, 56% have a negative view of Trump. Only 24% have a positive. Now, this is the so-called man of the people. He's not in line with the public,
and because we're talking about lowering bills, scrapping net zero, saving British steel, taking that back into public ownership, these are the things that matter to the British people. These are the things that will drive growth and make people better off. And that's why we are leading or equal first in the polls.
I know, but then saving the Chagos Islands, you lost that argument to Donald Trump, didn't you? I mean, Nigel Farage's bestie,
this Labour government
sold you down the river, hasn't he, Reform?
No, this Labour government hasn't asked the US to pay a single dollar to Mauritius. So of course the Americans think, great, we've still got occupation of these islands for the next 99 years. We don't have to pay. Those foolish Brits under the foolish Keir Starmer is paying billions and billions of pounds. Let me tell you, on the Chagos deal, we will rip it up. When we win the next generation, we will rip it up. It'll be an invalid treaty because the Mauritians are in breach of the original 1960s treaty when we paid them the equivalent of £75 million to cede any future claims. That's the focus. That's why we've got the support of the British people on the Chagos deal.
I know, but I thought Nigel Farage has got Donald Trump's ear. So why on earth wasn't he able to intervene and say to the US president, this isn't really a good idea, and we're mates, we're good mates across the political pond?
The role of any leader of any country is to negotiate the best deal for their citizens. Because the Americans have not been asked to pay a single dollar for this ludicrous deal, the Americans are not that concerned about it. Relative to all the other issues, the Ukraine war, the Middle East crisis, that is on their in tray. So look, but at the end of the day, that Chagos deal, it's the worst property deal in history, and when Reform win the next election, we will rip it up as an invalid treaty.
Yes,
and the Mauritians need to understand that.
Where have you been on the rape gangs? I mean, Rupert Lowe's managed to raise £500,000 for an inquiry.
We've spoken...
Have you raised any money for an inquiry?
We have spoken very clearly, very loudly against the appalling child abuse, these grooming gangs, these rape gangs.
But you haven't done anything about it. It's like the two-tier sentencing thing.
We're literally...
Robert Jenrick moved the dial on that. Have you moved the dial on anything, do you think?
So we moved the dial on the thugs in Manchester Airport by saying we were going to pursue a private criminal prosecution. That finally led to the charges against those two individuals. Okay, so we moved the dial. So actually, we've led the way on all of this stuff.
But you haven't really moved the dial on rape gangs or two-tier justice.
We're like everybody else. We've said there need to be more inquiries on the rape gang, so I think we've absolutely moved the dial on that. Two-tier justice. We're the people that keep getting barracked in the House of Commons for talking about two-tier justice. That's literally Labour targeting reform because we're so relevant.
Is Robert Jenrick out Faraging Farage? He might be. I'm going to ask Kemi Badenoch this as well. Is Robert Jenrick out Jenricking Badenoch?
Competition's a great thing. It keeps us all on our toes.
You might need him in reform. He's quite effective,
Competition's
isn't
a good thing.
It's quite effective. Let's talk about your story about... This is quite extraordinary. Taxpayers potentially footing the bill to rescue an £862 million pension fund for MPs. I beg your pardon.
Seriously, so the MP's pension fund is underperforming and the taxpayers are likely to have to put in tens of millions of extra cash in order to prop it up because it is insisting in investing in net zero, renewable, ethical, ESG-type funds, which are underperforming, and that means that it's going to require more money to be put into it. And the trustees are putting political ideology ahead of their fiduciary duties. They admit it in their own documentation when they say they admit that ESG risks could impact on the returns. This is an absolute scandal that needs to be raised. Well, what can be done about it is I've written to the pension trustees. I've said this is unacceptable. I've said I think many of your assets are overvalued, and I want an explanation of what's going on, because many of the big investment managers around the world are moving away from this ethical ESG investing because it always leads to worse performance, and because this pension pot is propped up by the taxpayer, so the taxpayer is on the hook for tens and tens of millions of pounds of their cash, and I think that's fundamentally wrong.
Mind you, haven't all of our pensions been clobbered by this tariff war? I mean, I don't think anyone that's invested in stocks and shares over the course of the last week has done very well, Richard.
All the more reason not to be focused on net zero, renewable energy type projects that are not delivering the returns that people expect and demand. So I'm appalled by it, and that's why I've written to the trustees, and I'm looking forward to a meeting and an explanation, because I think they're in breach of their duties, and it's the taxpayer who's on the hook for tens and tens of millions of pounds, past and future.
OK, let's just talk about policy. The Financial Times reported last week that your first major policy campaign in 2026 will be countering house building. Countering house building? Do you recognise that?
Frankly, the Financial Times often gets things wrong. I've no idea what they're talking about. I'm a house builder. I understand house building.
How many houses do you think should be built in the UK over the course of the next 5 years?
The first thing to do is to stop the population growth so that we can actually build homes for existing British citizens. That's the way to bring prices down, to reduce the pressure. And we should focus on brownfield sites where there's far too much reluctance to build on them, far too many daft regulations being imposed by the previous government and this regime.
What do you think about this transition that the Labour government have made between green and grey belt? Because that's worrying a lot of people in rural communities that would be likely actually to vote for reform. Isn't that just licence to concrete over parts of the countryside? Well, we know we need more homes.
We need more homes, but we've also got so much brownfield sites, and you can tweak the definition of brownfield or greyfield or whatever. But the focus is stop the population growth and build homes for British people. That is the way to deal with the housing shortage, reduce the price growth, cut the cost of building the homes, which is huge because of the over-regulation, because of things like net zero, forcing house builders to put heat pumps in them and all sorts of other things. All of this stuff is costing us serious money. It's making us poorer, and we've got to stop it.
On the low front, just to finish where we started.
You are obsessed with it. You started.
What happens now? What happens now?
What happens now?
To his seat,
we're not
your
interested.
colleague. Yeah, but what happens now? He's just an independent. You forget about him. There's no way back in the party.
There's no way back. Good luck to Rupert. Good luck.
In the vein of the Spice Girls.
Frankly, I'm not interested. We're focused on winning elections.
You're a man down. This is not great, is it? 6 months in. What are we now? 8 months in. You're already a man down.
We're leading the polls.
Are you? This week has the Tories ahead. Cons 26, Reform 25, Labour 21.
Well, there we are. So that's why...
You have been damaged by this, let's just be honest.
We're literally, from 14% of the general election, 7 months later, we're now leading in the polls, or first equal. 1 point is within the margin of error. Competition's a great thing. We've all got to perform better. We've got to convince the British people who's going to make them better off. The way you make people better off is scrap net zero, focus on reindustrialising Britain,
agree with Camilla Badenham?
Excuse me, I'm literally the one who started the policy of scrapping net zero.
She's coming in next. You can cross each other, coming into the studio and discuss
Ask her if she's going to scrap it.
Small C Conservative principles together.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Conservative Party leader Camilla Badenam joins me in the studio. Let's talk tariffs then. Do you think this is all down to Starmer, us getting 10% and not 20% like the EU, or is Brexit responsible for this?
Of course it's Brexit.
Oh,
of course it's because
superior negotiating
we left the European Union. This was one of the benefits. We now have an independent trade policy. but we need to use it. Many people want to just dynamically align with the EU. That's what Starmer wants to do, just copy what they're doing. That's lazy. And the fact is, it's the decisions that he's made that have put us in a worse position. We would be able to handle all of this turbulence better if they hadn't put up taxes, if they hadn't driven up inflation and driven down growth, which is now just 1%.
Although he did ask you a pretty good question at PMQs on Wednesday. He said to you, well, why didn't the Tories deliver a free trade agreement? You were trade secretary. Why didn't you influence things?
Because President Biden said he wasn't doing any free trade agreements. So the negotiations that we carried out were with President Trump. And his trade representative was in the room. He's back now. So they should pick up where we left off. We'd had good gains in the negotiations, but they now need to make sure that what they negotiate isn't just giving stuff up to get what we had last week.
When we talk about this trade deal, a lot's been said about, oh, we're going to have to try and water down the digital services tax and maybe we need to water down the online safety bill, and these are all of the concessions we're going to have to be making to the tech bros in America. I mean, you're a realist. You appreciate that that's going to be part of the quid pro quo.
It doesn't have to be. That's not how trade negotiations work. We cannot give stuff away just to lower the tariffs. That's just putting us back where we were last week with even less.
We've got to give something, though, haven't we? I mean, the art of the deal. Donald Trump isn't going to accept a trade deal only on the UK's terms. That would be preposterous.
No, but it wouldn't only be on the UK's terms. Let's look at what the two sectors are asking for. The best trade deals are the ones where businesses from both countries come together. We used to have, you know, the British-American alliance and all of those sorts of investors. They would say this is how it could work for both countries. If you allow unions to negotiate the way Labour does, then yes, you're going to get something terrible. But this is what worries me, that we have a government that doesn't know what it's doing, that's making bad decisions. Look at what they've done on Chagos. Look at what they've done with the family farms tax. Look at what they've done on winter fuel. Now today, they're reversing this zero electric vehicles mandate, which we had done previously. They messed everybody around, told people we were climate change deniers, scrapped it. Now they've seen that actually their net zero plans don't make sense.
Darren Jones is being a bit equivocal about that. I don't know what I don't know what's happening next week. He might come up with an industrial strategy. What are you saying on the whole car industry problem? Because obviously we've got Jaguar Land Rover now temporarily suspending sales to the
because
US.
of course we didn't get a reprieve on car tariffs.
No.
We didn't get a reprieve on that.
25%.
Exactly.
The car industry's on its knees. You've obviously come forward with that scrapping of the net zero by 2050 pledge. What are you saying about EVs and how should the car industry be supported through this abject crisis?
We need to create policies that make sense. Can people afford this? Where are the components coming from? Not just relying on China, which is partly what President Trump is trying to do. This trade war is really about China. The rest of us are in the way and are feeling the brunt of it. But another thing that we can do is start working with the other partners. We had the biggest post-Brexit trade deal, CPTPP, those 12 countries, Japan, Australia, Mexico, Canada. They're all feeling the brunt as well. We should be working with them. Let's try and lower some other tariffs. Let's do more where we have influence, as we do with the EU, rather than just sitting back and looking for more things to give away to the US. That's not the right way to do it.
Also, though, aren't we going to be worried that we are now going to be flooded with even more Chinese goods? I mean, you speak to somebody like James Dyson. He says the Chinese don't have any respect for intellectual property.
Rather than throwing all the rules away, let's make sure that those who don't play by the rules are made accountable. That's where you use tariffs. That's what they're there for. WTO rules are about people who are dumping goods, over-subsidising, unfair competition. That's what tariffs should be used for.
How about this whole idea of a no free trade deal without freedom of speech? You've spoken up in favour of the anti-abortionist Livia Tosiki-Bolt. She's obviously been found guilty last week of infringing an area, a no-go zone, with her kind of silent prayer. Where do we go from here on that?
We do have free speech in this country. It is under threat in some ways. The problem is that a lot of organisations are just imposing all sorts of mad things. People are having to go to court, go to tribunals. That is not fair. The case of Olivia is slightly different. This was something that Parliament voted for. Anything to do with abortion, Parliament makes a free vote. I think I voted against that particular regulation. But when Parliament votes, that is our law. That doesn't mean that we don't have free speech. I think it's probably on the wrong side of individual rights. But I also do understand that when it comes to sensitive issues issues like abortion. We need to make sure that people aren't harassed or people aren't undergoing something stressful.
Quite a way away.
It's not.
I think she was 150
exactly.
meters away.
Exactly. So what we're not saying is that we want protesters outside abortion clinics shouting at people, but let's try and get the balance right.
And how about Lucy Connolly? This is the lady who has been in prison because of the post on X about the Southport riots. She pleaded guilty to inciting racial hatred. She certainly shouldn't have posted that on X. Should she still be in prison?
Well, this is one of the things that I have asked the Shadow Justice team to look at. Rob Jenrick, Kieran Mullen, I said sentencing is a problem in our country. Many people are complaining. It's not just people like Lucy who people believe are getting unfair sentences. It's also the unduly lenient sentences, people who should be getting whole life terms who aren't getting whole life terms. I had a roundtable with people like Sarah Everard's parents and many others about how we are sentencing. Something's gone wrong with it. And I think that Lucy Connolly should probably appeal her case. I think that there are grounds to do so. It looks like, in the aftermath of Southport, that a lot of decisions were rushed. I remember Keir Starmer almost implying that he knew who was guilty and who wasn't before we'd come to the conclusions of the case. I don't think that the government got the response to Southport right. People should feel free to say what they are concerned about. They shouldn't cross the line, but then we also shouldn't have these huge sentences for smaller offences and then other people who do serious things getting away with it.
I mean, the counter-argument to that will be Chris Grayling's reforms absolutely shafted the prison service. You had loads of retired officers leaving. We've now got less space. You're calling for longer sentences. There simply isn't room. The Tories should have built more prisons.
Yes, we should.
Just heard from Baroness Newlove. The whole criminal justice system is in disarray post-COVID.
Absolutely, absolutely. We should have built more. COVID stopped the biggest prison building programme that was ever going to happen, and that is a shame. But one of the things I'm telling people now is that the Conservative Party is under new leadership. I can't fix what Chris Grayling did before I became an MP, which was what those reforms were. I'm the leader now. What are we going to do now? And that is why I have asked Rob Jenrick, for example, to go out and fight all the battles on two-tier sentencing council, all of that.
Is that a problem for you? Because lots of people are saying Rob Jenrick is the leader of the opposition, not Kemi Badenoch. He's moved the dial on the sentencing council's decision. They've reversed it.
But these are things which he and I discuss, and I say go for hell for leather. Make sure you do that.
I know, but he's breathing down your neck, isn't he?
I disagree. People are not used to seeing teamwork. They're used to seeing it is. I have a fantastic shadow education secretary. She's got Labour to make a U-turn on their schools bill. Priti Patel is doing a great job fighting the Chagos deal. That's what it should look like.
Do you think Robert Jenrick is cutting through better than you are?
There are a lot of issues. There are a lot of issues around justice. He is a lawyer. I wanted him to do exactly that. It is not my job to be the shadow justice secretary. It is my job to be the leader of the opposition, to build a team that can man-mark every single person in Labour.
But are you happy with
my
how
job
it's
is
going?
to focus on Keir Starmer.
Because your performance at PMQs has also been criticised.
People will always criticise performance at PMQs. They criticise Keir Starmer's performance in PMQs. They criticise Boris Johnson's performance at PMQs. What I'm here to do is talk about what Labour is doing to our country. Every PMQs, I talk about the jobs tax that's coming in today. It's going to impact people's lives. Their businesses are closing. Their jobs are going. We're getting poorer. Inflation is up. Growth is down. Taxes are up. That's why we're worried about tariffs. That's what I'm doing. It is my job to talk about everything and to show people the damage Labour is doing to our economy.
On the adolescence row, I mean, it's become a meme, really, this idea that you haven't watched this show. You actually said, I think Islamic extremism is more of a threat than the incel movement, particularly to radicalising young people, but also the British public. Can I ask you something? Because it came up on the show in February. We had a guy called Amjad Tatar on who was saying that there is more extremism in the UK than in the Middle East at times. And he made the point, why didn't the Tories prescribe the Muslim Brotherhood? If you're serious about Islamic extremism, wouldn't you do that? This is an organisation that's not allowed to exist in countries like the UAE, Egypt, and, I couldn't believe this when I read it this morning, Syria. Why are they operating in the UK?
Well, this is one of the things which creates that tension. We were talking about freedom of speech earlier, and this is one of the areas where we try and make sure that we have one rule for everyone
would you
else.
ban them?
But people exploit many of our laws. I know that there have been many issues around the Muslim Brotherhood. We have taken action.
We should prescribe them, shouldn't we?
I have not seen the decisions on why they were or were not prescribed.
Well, David Cameron was going to and then shied back from it during his administration.
Right.
I'm asking you, if you're serious about cracking down on Islamic extremism, surely under a Kemi Badenoch government, the Muslim Brotherhood should be prescribed.
There should any organisation that is a threat to this country, that is promoting sectarian interests and is inciting hatred and so much more, should be prescribed.
So you're saying yes to the Muslim Brotherhood?
What I'm not doing is, without having the facts and looking at a case, just saying yes. You know I don't just make announcements on TV.
What's your instinct on it? It seems nuts that the Muslim Brotherhood could exist in the UK but not in Syria because they're deemed too dangerous.
I don't know whether the manifestation of it in Syria is the same as here, but they have more draconian laws there. They execute people there. We don't. So let's look at what's actually happening. It is not an organisation that I believe that has the interests of the UK. But before we prescribe, let's look at what's gone wrong. Why didn't it happen before? There must have been reasons. I'm not aware of what those reasons were. There were other organisations we did prescribe, like Hamas, for example, despite a lot of opposition. So we prescribed lots of organisations. I'm not specifically sure why the manifestation of the Muslim Brotherhood didn't. I'm sure there were good reasons. But we are against any sort of organisation that is undermining the values of our country.
OK, Kemi Badenoch, we need to leave it there. But thank you very much for joining me in the studio this morning.
Thank you, Camilla.
Lovely to see you.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. It's much drier across Spain and Portugal as we head into the new working week. There'll be plenty of sunny spells across much of the Med, but the risk of some showers at times too. Madeira's seeing some showers, but plenty of sunny spells too. Much of the dry weather across Spain and Portugal, though 1 or 2 showers are possible. Showers become more frequent from Italy, stretching across to Greece and Turkey. Temperatures a little on the disappointing side for the time of year, and it remains so for the next few days too.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Good afternoon and welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, we have high pressure in charge. This will lead to some chilly starts but dry with plenty of sunshine and lighter winds. So taking a look at the bigger picture then, this is the area of high pressure situated out towards the northeast. Still a bit of a squeeze in the ice bar, especially across eastern areas to give a bit of a chillier feel here. But otherwise through the rest of today, plenty of late evening sunshine and then staying dry and clear as we go through this evening and into the start of Monday morning. We do have some cloud though just across parts of Shetland, but for many of us, with the winds easing, temperatures will quickly fall away. Mist and fog patches for some of us and a touch of frost. Rural places may dip down to -3 or even -5 degrees to start Monday morning. So a chilly start out there for many of us. There will still be some cloud lingering across parts of Shetland, but for Scotland, plenty of sunshine to start Monday morning. Likewise for Northern Ireland, any mist and fog patches will soon lift and clear. And that's a similar picture for the rest of England and Wales. Plenty of sunshine to start Monday. And that theme continues throughout the rest of Monday. Plenty of dry, fine and settled weather around. The winds also easing, so lighter winds, but still a little bit chilly across some eastern coasts. Otherwise, still staying cloudy across parts of Shetland, but for many of us, still feeling pleasant in that sunshine, especially out towards the west. We could see highs of 16 or 17 degrees, but any windward coast still feeling a little bit chilly. And as we go through Monday evening and into Tuesday, well, not much changes. We hold on to the light winds. That will allow mist and fog to develop once again. But then as we go through the week, we hold on to high pressure, plenty of sunshine, perhaps a bit cloudier on Wednesday for some of us, and then temperatures rising. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
down to earth,
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
and most importantly, honest,
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Joining me now is the Victims Commissioner, Baroness Newlove. Look, it's been nearly 20 years since your beloved husband, Gary, was murdered. An absolutely awful crime. I remember covering it when I was at the Sunday Express. And ever since then, you've campaigned on behalf of victims. What's the criminal justice system looking like today compared to back then? I mean, I'm getting the impression that things have only got worse for victims, but you tell me, Helen.
Good morning, Camilla. Yes, I have to say it looks a very, very bleak criminal justice system that is on its knees, to be perfectly honest. And that's why I wanted to do a Justice Delayed report, because I wanted people to understand what it feels like for victims. It's a completely different picture. The waiting lists are many years and victims are just being adjourned. Their cases, I spoke to one victim where her case had been adjourned 6 times, and she did say if it got to the 7th, she was just going to give up. So, yeah, it is a very bleak landscape that we're facing.
I mean, the findings of your report are really quite stark. Only 27% of victims perceived the criminal justice system as effective, and a mere 38% believed it to be fair. Mm-hmm. Is this something relating to the COVID backlog, this idea that justice delayed is justice denied? We know the courts haven't caught up. Or is there a kind of wider malaise here?
I think it's a bit of both, to be honest with you, if I'm quite blunt. The investment into the courts in the former government, previous government, and what we're looking at today is really shameful on victims, because we hear the headlines, but actually victims don't get any of this information. They go out to report a crime, and then the worst thing that happens to them is the non-communication. They have to wait for a system then to look at whether they're going to charge somebody, whether somebody's going to be held in remand. There's lots of things before we're talking about a Crown Court trial. So I think it really is a disservice and an injustice to victims who want to, we'll be saying, give them confidence to go forward. There is trials going now that are being adjourned to 2028. And don't forget, well, you've got what I would like is a level playing field, because obviously the judiciary have to look at people who are in remand. They have to look at, the vulnerability, but that's all on the basis of a defendant. Now, I'm all right for a fair trial, but then there's a victim involved in this. Where does that treatment to a victim apply? And it doesn't.
Is there an argument for the courts just sitting for longer and over weekends to catch up?
I have to say, I'm working closely with the judiciary, because it is important that we get all the mechanisms. And I know the government have given extra days, but that's just one of the ducks that lines up. We also have to have enough prosecutors to do the courts. We're very short on them. We've got the magistrates' court, the legal advocates they're paid less than a junior counsel, so they're looking for better paid jobs. And we have got prisoners that are not turning up till the afternoon. That's got nothing to do with the courts listings. That's the system to make the listings do. And also, Camilla, you mentioned a really valid point here. While there's no money, they keep saying there's no money, and I'm waiting for the spending review. I'm very, very precious about victim services because they're waiting a lot longer. And so we're now going to see victim services redundant or closed down, which we are seeing, is the fact that there's over £1 billion of outstanding fines, compensation orders that is not being paid. Why is it that the government gets off the backside, all of them, and chases that money so it doesn't have an impact on victim services and the way the listing and victims are paid, quite rightly? Over £1 billion of unpaid fines is unacceptable.
I totally agree with you. I mean, if you and I missed a TV licence payment,
yes,
or God forbid we got a car parking fine, we'd have bailiffs around the door. Why aren't there bailiffs chasing after criminals that owe victims and others money?
Exactly. If you don't pay your fine in court for a speeding fine, you get all these very angry letters, and yet we have over £1 billion of unpaid debts, compensation, everything, and it's just floating. And I think the time has come to say, stop saying there's no money when there is, and we need to chase that. It has to be on the back of an offender. If we can send people to prison for unpaid council tax, why is it somebody who's already been convicted is not paying what they should? And when they do, it's very piecemeal, it's insulting, the victim can never move on. Nobody looks into the depth of that. And I think that's a piece of information people need to look at when they say there is no money in our criminal justice system.
I'm going to ask you just about a story today that I'm going to discuss with Kemi Badenoch in just a moment. Lucy Connolly is the woman who posted something bad on X about the South Park riots. She pleaded guilty to inciting violence. She's still in prison. She said, look, my husband's very ill. I've got a young daughter. This was a first offence. Can I please have early release? And she's been denied it. And I just wondered what you thought of that. Is it right that this woman is in prison when we've got potentially rape and other victims waiting for 3 years for justice? It doesn't make much sense to me, but what do you think, Baroness Newlove?
Well, I totally agree. This woman has said what she said, and as Victims Commissioner, I'm saying this as Helen, in a sense, not the Victims Commissioner. I was quite shocked in that sense. And I don't know all the circumstances, but the fact is there is an early release scheme that I'm working closely with the MOJ, with probation, and I'm fighting tooth and nail so that we don't release dangerous people, because these people who are there are being released on assault, but that could be a domestic abuser. It may be other indications releasing. So I don't understand why, I don't know in the background, but surely, that she is an ideal candidate. She's, know, and everything. So for me, I quite agree. I'm not the one who says the moves and shakers, but I think it's about a moral compass and a common sense approach to all of this.
Also, finally, Baroness, on the rape gang front, we've had the Tory MP Robbie Moore make the point that Tom Crowther KC was meant to be appointed by the Home Office 3 months ago to start this local inquiry process by the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper. He revealed last week, he's still not really heard anything. He doesn't know what's going on. Are you worried that this whole inquiry process isn't sort of proceeding at speed, that somehow the government has dropped the ball on this?
I don't know personally what's going on, but what I would say, Camilla, is my experience is nothing moves fast in government. It really doesn't move fast. That's not a justification of what's going on. But I would say that, the Home Secretary is saying it's very important, and it's so important for victims. This is really important, and we need to speed up the process. If we can say we're speeding up planning, why can't we speed up the process to get this, get him in place and get this inquiry started? It's very important. But I would just say I do know, because I get very impatient. It takes ages to get anything through.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening and welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, we have high pressure dominating through the rest of today and into next week, bringing plenty of dry and sunny days, but some chilly nights. Taking a look at the bigger picture then, we've got high pressure situated towards the northeast, still a bit of a squeeze in the isobars, but winds will be easing. So through the rest of this evening and overnight, for many of us, we hold on to plenty of clear skies. This will allow temperatures to quickly fall away. We'll see some mist and fog patches in places, especially across Northern Ireland and parts of Scotland. The far north of Scotland holding on to cloudier skies across Orkney and Shetland, but lows reaching down to -3 or possibly -5 in places. So it's going to be a chilly start out there, especially across parts of Scotland with a touch of frost. Cloudy across northern parts, so across Orkney and Shetland. Across Northern Ireland, bright, but we will see some mist and fog patches first thing. They'll gradually lift and clear. And then for much of England and Wales, plenty of sunshine to start Monday morning. And we hold on to that theme throughout much of Monday as well. Many places holding on to dry, sunny skies, still cloudy across Shetland and perhaps into Orkney later. But we'll see lighter winds as well, so they'll be easing, especially along the south coast. Otherwise, still going to be feeling warm in that sunshine, especially out towards the west. We've got highs of up to 16 or 17 degrees and perhaps just feeling a little bit more pleasant down that eastern coast. Through Tuesday, it's a very similar start, so plenty of bright skies out there, but perhaps a little bit chilly first thing. We'll also see some cloud just filtering in further across northern parts of Scotland, perhaps some fair weather cloud across East Anglia. And we'll see a bit more cloud on Wednesday as well for many of us before that clears. Otherwise, plenty of sunshine and turning warmer as we go Thursday and Friday.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with sky roof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For a chance to win a motorhome and cash, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new Royal Newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at